We photographers are gearheads, no? We also seem to love a bit of hyperbole. In 2017, when Sigma brought out the gigantic 135 f1.8 lens for DSLRs, some clever journo decided to call it the Bokeh Master, and everyone picked up on that, and somehow it seemed to become its official, unofficial nickname. Well, flash forward 8.5 years, and they're releasing this guy. This is the 135 for mirrorless, and it's an f1.4. I've already seen people talking about this being the ultimate dream portrait lens, and I'm sure that nickname is going to pick up. So in this video, as well as talking you through what this lens is, first a little hands-on, I want to talk to you about what actually makes for great bokeh, because there's more to it than a lot of people seem to think. Folks, you can check out all my links in the link tree below. It includes my Sony and Nikon setup guides, as well as Patreon Uncut, my members only page where I share behind the scenes on portrait shoots with all my models, including Honey, and also my Polycameras t-shirts. Thanks for checking it out. Almost got my finger. We're now at the 135 Sigma lens at f1.4 wide open. How does it look? I want to talk to you about bokeh in this video. It's actually what this video is mostly about. Now, when we talk about bokeh, there's a couple of things to note. Bokeh just means blur. So everything in front of me and everything behind me that's not in perfectly sharp focus, that is our bokeh. An aperture is just one element that contributes to your overall bokeh look. Now, for this shot, the camera is 180 inches away, 135 mil at f1.4 using a depth of field calculator. That gives us 3.7 inches depth of field here. But actually, once you equalize your frame, the focal length doesn't really matter. f1.4 is f1.4 is f1.4 until you get up to macro. Let me demonstrate. Now we've switched to one of my favorite lenses, the 105 1.4 E lens via adapter. Brought the camera closer. It's now about 140 inches away, still at f1.4, and still, technically, we have the same 3.7 inches depth of field. Now we're on the 85 mm Z lens. We brought it closer again to about 113 mm. Here, still at f1.4, we still have that same 3.7 inches. But on this lens, I can go down to f1.2, and that reduces my depth of field to 3.1 inches. Could you notice a difference? Now we're on the 50 mm Z lens at f1.4, brought it in that much closer again, still 3.7 inches. If we go down to f1.2, hey presto, we're back at 3.1. Once you equalize the frame, you must be seeing the trend there, your depth of field equalizes as well. Likewise with the 35 mm lens, 47 inches away, we get exactly the same results. We're currently at f1.2, so what is it? 3.1 inches depth of field. So you can see aperture isn't that big of a deal. It's really not an issue at all for portraiture if you're equalizing the frame as you change your different focal lengths. If the aperture's the same, the depth of field is going to stay the same as well. But as you change your focal lengths, the overall look of the shot is going to dramatically change along with the bokeh. And here, jumping back to 135 mm again, this time with the Viltrox f1.8 lens, you see, despite being at f1.8 and thereby having a depth of field of 4.7 inches, my field of view is much narrower. So there's less clutter in the background than there was at 35 mm. So in a sense, it's cleaned up the background, and bokeh meaning blur, if the blur is less distracting, it can be kind of a more aesthetic shot. And here going even further back with my favorite, the 200 f2, now 267 inches away. We're at f2, so we actually have like 5.26 inches depth of field. But again, the field of view has been narrowed down and the background gets cleaned up even more. This is starting to get a little bit silly, so let's push it even further. And here we are with my second favorite lens, the 400 mm f2.8, going so far back, it gives us a depth of field of 7.5 inches. So a much bigger depth of field than all of the others. But again, that field of view is so narrow, all those distractions are just removed. So which one is actually the best bokeh for portraits? And actually, what was this video about again? The Sigma. Okay, let's talk about the Sigma. I got this. So yes, we were talking about the lens and bokeh. This is the lens again. Let's get back to bokeh. So what makes for beautiful bokeh? Yes, your aperture does have an impact. We saw that, but it's only a small part of it. I would argue, especially for portraits, your overall image is more determined by the focal length. Just looking at those different frames at me, how my face was replicated, the overall shape of my face was different in each one, as well as the cleaning up ability of the long lenses to get rid of junk in the backgrounds. But I would say more than depth of field, aperture, or even focal length, what makes for beautiful or interesting bokeh is actually the character of the lens that you're shooting with. Let's grab a bunch of different 50 mils so I can show you the variation between what should otherwise be kind of the same result. So here we are on the Nikkor Z50 f1.8S lens. A great lens, sharp, contrasty, but maybe a little clinical. What do you think? Here we go with the 1.2ZS lens. Quite a different look, apart from having a much shallower depth of field than f1.8. It also just has a different look to the in and out of focus areas. Here we go with the poor man's Noctilux, the TT Artisans 50mm f0.95. Surprisingly quite a sharp lens wide open. Really difficult to work with though. You move slightly forward or back and you're out of focus. And what do you think of the blur? And maybe the softest lens I own, but the most characterful, the MS Optics 50mm f1.0. I think it's actually 1.01. This lens is soapy. You barely get anything in focus. If you do get it in focus, it's still not sharp until about f2.8, but it has loads of character. And if you're looking for interesting bokeh, sometimes a bit of quirk and character is better than just being perfectly smooth. Or how about this guy, the 58mm f2 Helios lens. This is one that I tested way back in New York. It has loads of character and a completely different look. It's a cult favorite for a reason. So what do you guys think? Was it the focal length, was it the aperture, or was it the character that most impacted how beautiful our bokeh is? I'm actually gonna argue that it's a fourth thing, none of those, something that you have full control over, that you don't have to pay for, that you can determine in every shot, and it's what is your background and how you set up your frame. First thing is, how close are you to your background? When you're really close to your background, there isn't enough distance for it to really soften out, so you're not gonna get that beautiful bokeh. Likewise, what background you choose. If you choose like branches or a security fence that have really hard lines, even as you're opening your aperture up, the background just can't get that soft. Worth noting that whilst this is smaller, lighter, cheaper, and it's a stop faster than the 200 f2, I would personally still take the 200 f2 over this for portraiture. I just personally think that the 200 reproduces the face in a way that's most accurate, and I like the results personally. But for a lot of people, this is a dream lens. I can totally see why, and big kudos to Sigma for finally delivering on the promise of mirrorless, of making faster, smaller, lighter lenses that don't cost triple what they used to. Great to see this. Thanks for letting me check it out. Let me know what you thought of the bokeh conversation, and links to all the little promo-y stuff I mentioned through this are in my link tree below. Bye! Sometimes backlighting your subject can work great for a portrait, but when your subject's in full shadow and the background is kind of blowing out, it can look quite strange. Likewise, choosing a frame where your subject is in bright sunlight and the background is in shadow can result in really weird bokeh. An unconventional angle like this, even though we have all these hard branches in the background and we're using a cheap 50mm kit lens, we're still able to get beautiful bokeh in the background thanks to the specular highlights of the hotspots coming through the trees. Good background selection with a cheap lens can get you much more beautiful bokeh than poor shot selection with the best lens on the market. Anyway, we should get back to the ultimate bokeh master portrait champion of the entire world, the new 135-1.4. It is pretty cool. It's lighter than the 135-1.8 used to be. Now it's faster, it's got Argus Swiss built in. It's kind of a chonker, looks like a teeny tiny little 200 f2. It's 1.4 kilograms, hello, and the 200 f2 is like 1.8, so it's a fair bit lighter. It shares the same 105mm front filter thread. It has 17 elements in 13 groups, including 4 FLD and 2 aspherical elements. And it's going to be coming in L and E mount. The one I have is E mount. I've been using it on the E to Z adapter. I'll have a link below, but to be honest, I don't know if I would recommend buying an E mount lens for your Z mount camera. I can't really comment on the autofocus because every time I've used it is via adapter, but it has dual HLA motors. And I have to say the strike rate on this has been surprisingly good, even adapted, so it only bodes well. Worth noting that whilst this is smaller, lighter, cheaper, and it's a stop faster than the 200 f2, I would personally still take the 200 f2 over this for portraiture. I just personally think that the 200 reproduces the face in a way that's most accurate, and I like the results personally. But for a lot of people, this is a dream lens. I can totally see why, and big kudos to Sigma for finally delivering on the promise of mirrorless, of making faster, smaller, lighter lenses that don't cost triple what they used to. Great to see this. Thanks for letting me check it out. Let me know what you thought of the bokeh conversation, and links to all the little promo-y stuff I mentioned through this are in my link tree below. Bye!